Judge John Hlophe is a household name in South Africa. He's known mostly for some of the complaints that have arisen around him over the years, but he's also a proponent for simplifying justice. I'm in his home today, along with our team from Newzroom Afrika. I'm Dianne. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for inviting us into your home today, Judge Hlophe.
Thank you, and you're welcome to our home. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I want to start here. It's very rare that we get to speak to a sitting judge, yes. And even more rare, I would say, that we get to speak to you. Yes. Why have you decided at this point to speak out?
Well, I decided to speak out because I feel that I'm suffering in silence. There are a number of judges in this country that have complaints. There are complaints that have been made against a number of sitting judges in this country, including judges, president. I'm aware of those complaints. And there are also complaints that have been made against the Chief Justice of this country, Chief Justice Mogoeng. I have also filed complaints against him, and nobody is talking about those complaints. An impression is created that I'm the only judge in this country against whom there are complaints. So I've decided to speak out, let the truth be told.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned that you're not the only judge where there's been issues and complaints being raised around. And I'm sure that we'll get into some of that detail without necessarily discussing the merits of it. But if we go back to the complaint from 2008, which is one that has been sort of hanging for a long time now, it's 12 years later. What do you make of the fact that it's 12 years later and there's still going to be a hearing over that? There still isn't an outcome over that. From the perspective of what that actually means to those who have to engage with the law from the outside?
The complaint is long. It's 12 years old. There have been a number of delays. Some delays were certainly not occasioned by my side. The very last time when there was a hearing was in 2013. We were in Johannesburg for 2 solid weeks. The witnesses that were expected to come and give evidence, particularly the retired Deputy Chief Justice Dianne, did not pitch. We waited for about 2.5 weeks. Subsequent thereto, there were legal challenges that were made by Justices Ngabinde and Jafta, right? There were also delays which were caused by the fact that the legal team, my lawyers, were not paid by the state. And I believe even today they have not been paid in full. So there have been a number of delays. There was also a time when we brought an application for the recusal of one of the members of the tribunal, right? All of these were systemic delays. Unfortunately, for a period of 12 years, it means that my name has not been cleared. Yeah. But let me remind you, on the 29th of September 2009, the Judicial Service Commission cleared me from these allegations that were leveled against me by some of the judges of the Constitutional Court. That was a ruling made by the Judicial Service Commission. Then what kept it alive until now was the Democratic Alliance. The Democratic Alliance instituted fresh review proceedings and challenged that decision inter alia on the grounds that the Premier of the Western Cape was not part of the panel of the Judicial Service Commission. There was litigation. The matter went all the way to the Supreme Court of Appeal. I was cleared by the Judicial Service Commission. For the past 12 years, this is kept alive as a result of that interference that was made by the Democratic Alliance. This obviously has caused a lot of harm to me, to my reputation, to the reputation of people around me. I have children, I have a wife, I have people who love me, I have people who support me. So it has caused a lot of prejudice, unnecessary prejudice, and has drawn a lot of negative attention. And the result is that people tend to concentrate on that rather than the good work that I'm doing in the division. It is a fact that this is the best run court in the country. Everybody knows that, but nobody talks about that.
So you call it interference there on the part of the Democratic Alliance. They might argue that it was they exercising their rights in terms of the law. We've seen something like 14 different court cases in relation to this one matter that I think has led to this 12-year delay. Are you confident that this time around, when it's heard at the Judicial Service Commission, that the matter will actually be dealt with and the merits will actually be discussed?
I hope the matter will be heard and finalized once and for all. It has been a necessary storm. It has been hanging over my head for far too long. I would like it resolved and finalized once and for all. It is my hope.
Okay. Now, while you said you didn't want to talk about the specifics of the complaint, which is contained in the documents, what I do want to ask you about is, in the recent book that was released by former Deputy Chief Justice Moseneke, he does give an account of what happens. And one of the things he mentioned is that former Chief Justice Pius Langa called you before the statement was released and informed you that there was this complaint. Take us back to that day when you get a call from the Chief Justice at the time to say that he and his colleagues are laying a complaint against you. From a perspective of as you as the recipient, what was that day like?
The first time I was contacted by the journalists and not by Chief Justice Langa. The media contacted my office. It was in May 2018, before there was a formal complaint that was made against me. So I was contacted by the media first, long before. The judges of the Constitutional Court requested time to formulate the complaint. In other words, I was lynched publicly in the media before there was a formal complaint that was prepared against me by the judges of the Constitutional Court. Obviously, it was not good news in the first place, and how the complaint, how it was prepared and how events unfolded. Because there is a presumption of innocence in the first place. But most importantly, the two judges, Gabinde and Jafta, that I was alleged to have improperly tried to influence them, did not complain then, and still there is no formal complaint by them. Right? It is a fact that they are represented separately. They have separate legal representation, separate from the rest of the judges of the Constitutional Court. They have still not filed any complaint. As to the book by retired Deputy Chief Justice Mogoeng, he is entitled to his views. All I can say is that retired Deputy Chief Justice Moseneke did not attend the proceedings at the Judicial Service Commission in 2013 when I was there. Right? So his version has not been tested in cross-examination. He's welcome to go and give evidence in December when the hearing starts.
Yeah.
He is welcome. I hope he would be there. It doesn't matter what he says in his book.
Are you prepared to give evidence over those conversations?
I have given evidence before in September 2009. It was accepted by the Judicial Service Commission. I was cleared by the Judicial Conduct Tribunal.
I mean now that the case has come back to the fore, are you prepared to once again take the stand and give your version?
I am prepared. It is exactly the same version I have given before. I'm prepared to repeat that under oath again. Nothing has changed. I'm prepared. I have given that version before. I stand by it.
So one of the things that has delayed this process has been, as you mentioned, the position of judges Nkabinde and Jafta, where they were involved at the outset, but then in a way separated themselves from the complaint itself.
Yes.
And I just wonder, have you spoken to them since this whole saga started? It's been 12 years of your life, but I'm sure also 12 years of their lives where they're waiting for some kind of finality.
Well, we spoke a couple of times when we met. I remember I met Justice Jafta about 3 years in Cape Town. We greeted each other. After all, we've known each other for many, many years. He used to be a senior lecturer in my department when I was a law professor way back. I think the last time I saw Justice best Gabinde was in 2013, if not in 2009. But we're very civil with each other. We spoke and we shook hands. Right.
And I think some people might look at the situation after taking this many years to resolve this particular matter and really have a question about the processes that are available to deal with complaints against judges and whether or not they are effective. Considering that this has taken a very long time to resolve, it was finalized and then it came back to the fore. Is the problem the legislation? Is the problem the system? What is the real issue here?
I don't think the problem is legislation per se. Maybe it is the system and the role players and other interlopers, right? As I've said before, there are judges like myself. There will always be complaints against me. That much is clear because the issues are far broader than meets the eye, right? So you would expect interlopers, you would expect politicians always to make a noise, right? Yeah. So, but I do not think the problem is legislation itself. It is perhaps how it is applied. And also remember, the judges themselves who appear before these, the Judicial Service Commission, myself included, we become litigants in a sense, and we have our rights. We're entitled to take any legal points, right, which may be taken. And as I have said, you know, Justice Gabinde and Jafta have also litigated in this matter. I'm not the only litigant. They have also litigated. They're entitled to that. Inevitably, that causes delays, right? Some of the delays, as I've said, are systematic, but speaking for myself, I am ready to go before the Judicial Service Commission, and I would like this to be resolved sooner rather than later.
Welcome back. We're still in conversation with Judge Hlophe, the Western Cape High Court Judge President. He's allowed us into his home and giving us an opportunity to hear some of his thoughts on some of the matters that he's been involved in. Now, most recently, at the beginning of this year, there was a complaint that was laid against you, Judge Hlophe, by the Deputy Judge President in your own court. That's Judge Goliath. A lot of allegations contained in that complaint, amongst them that the court that you preside over is a very unhealthy working relationship or unhealthy working environment, let me rather say. The complaint also mentions that, or alleges that you were involved in an assault on a colleague and also alleges some verbal abuse of colleagues. So quite serious allegations. But you've also come with your own counter complaint. And I think we can get into the detail of that. But if we can start with the complaint by Judge Goliath. You've dismissed that complaint out of hand. You've said that it is not factually based.
Yes.
But if you could take our viewers into your confidence as to what's going on in the court that your deputy would actually make such a complaint against you.
Yes, briefly, Judge Goliath was away from the Western Cape High Court for a period of just around 18 months. The whole of 2017, she acted as a judge in the Constitutional Court, and part of 2018, she took long leave, and she came back to the division. When she came back to the division, everything was nice, it was quiet. The problem started when she could not be appointed as a judge in the Constitutional Court. When she was interviewed for one of the vacancies in the Constitutional Court, she was singing praises about my leadership skills. She was singing praises about how well the Western Cape High Court is run by me. She was singing praises about my leadership, how well I know what I'm doing. But the turning point was when she could not be absorbed. It is a fact that when she returned from the Constitutional Court, there were some structural changes in terms of style that I had to make. It is understandable. She was away from office. I had to move with the time. For instance, there used to be meetings every Friday. I would dish out work at the usual meetings every Friday. New technology has taken over. Meetings are entirely unnecessary, right? So when she lost, she became obviously unhappy, and she wanted her powers back in the division as a deputy. Essentially, she did not want to go to court and be allocated work like other judges. Now, you can't have a system. I think that gave rise to unhappiness. I'm trying to contextualize that. Now, that context is important because you cannot have someone who says 18 months previously, when she wanted to become a judge in the Constitutional Court, everything is well in the division. All of a sudden, without much ado, from one extreme to the other, from hero to zero. I was someone who was hailed, running the division exceptionally well, which is true. All of a sudden, there are complaints against me. Let's deal with those complaints. She filed a detailed affidavit dated the 15th of January 2019, dealing with a number of complaints against me and Judge John Hlophe, who's one of the judges in the division. Those complaints...
And who is also your wife.
Who's also my wife.
Yes.
Those complaints were dealt with by the Judicial Conduct Tribunal. Insofar as they relate to me, by a majority of 2-1, they were dismissed. Subsequent thereto, the Chief Justice Mogoeng got involved. Now, this is important. At the time when the Judicial Conduct Tribunal said it did not know, it was not disclosed by Judge Goliath that she had a scheduled secret meeting with Chief Justice Mogoeng on the 11th of October 2019. She complained to Mogoeng against me. Mogoeng did not take me into confidence. I do not know what was discussed at that meeting, other than what Mogoeng says, not under oath. He basically says Judge Goliath went to him and complained about me, about my leadership style, as well as the alleged assault by me of Judge Parker. Right? That was not disclosed to me by Judge Mogoeng. He kept quiet for 7 months until he had to respond to a query that was raised by a journalist, I think from Daily Maverick. I had no idea about this secret meeting that had taken place between Chief Justice Mogoeng and Judge Goliath. But what I know is what Judge Parker subsequently told me under oath, because he has deposed to an affidavit in support of the complaint that I have now lodged against the Chief Justice. Judge Parker says in writing, in terms of that affidavit, before he went to the meeting, I beg your pardon, before Judge Goliath went to the meeting of the 11th of October 2019, Judge Goliath went to Parker and said, the Chief Justice is waiting for you to go and complain. Shall I tell him about the alleged assault that you were assaulted by Judge Hlophe? Judge Parker says, no, I'm not complaining. We have resolved. I have no problem with Judge Hlophe. Right. Thereafter, she went and met with the Chief Justice. She came back. The next working day, she saw Judge Parker in the building and said to Judge Parker, I've already met with the Chief Justice. He's waiting for your complaint. Here is the telephone number. Here are the details of his professional assistant, Mrs. Slingers. Phone him, he's waiting for you. That's clearly instigating a complaint that does not exist. It's tantamount to investigating it. He is prosecuting the complaint. And suddenly the same Chief Justice, who was privy to so much information that was disclosed to him at this scheduled private secret meeting, he deemed it fit, notwithstanding all of that, to write a judgment in terms of which he now initiates a process whereby I could be impeached. You cannot have a judicial officer, with all due respect, instigating a complaint that does not exist, prosecuting that complaint, investigating it like a warrant officer, and ultimately sitting and presiding over that case. Chief Justice Mogoeng knows that he acted improperly. I have filed a complaint. He he is quiet. He is yet to respond to that.
So I've had a look at that complaint. I mean, your words against the Chief Justice in that complaint are quite strong. You accuse him of misconduct in terms of the norms and standards with which the judiciary acts, as well as of the code of conduct.
That's right.
As well as saying that he's acting outside the Constitution.
I feel aggrieved because my rights have been violated. It is unthinkable that you can have a sitting judge, who is a Chief Justice for that matter, right, instigating a complaint against one of the sitting judges. Mm. It is unheard of in any civilized world. The Chief Justice ought to know that that is not done. He should know better. Mm. That's number one. Number two, he has violated, Chief Justice Mogoeng has indeed violated my constitutional right relating to the right to a fair hearing, the right he cannot sit in a matter and preside over a matter in which he has an interest. Mm. There is absolutely no doubt that he has an interest in this matter. It is clear how he has gone about conducting himself. Mm-hmm. He has an interest in this matter, and he is privy to information that has not been disclosed to me. It's a basic right relating to a fair hearing. He should know better. But most importantly, Chief Justice Mogoeng is a judge like me, right? The Constitution applies to all of us. Chief Justice Mogoeng, like every other citizen in this country, is not above the law. I stress that. He is not above the law. He mustn't think he's above the law, right? And I have rights like any other human being in this country, like any other judge. Mogoeng is not above the law. He must comply with the law.
So Chief Justice Mogoeng is the head of the Judicial Service Commission.
Yes.
Your complaint is with the Judicial Service Commission.
That's right.
He's also the head of the court.
That's right.
Are you confident that you'll see some kind of movement on your complaint against the Chief Justice?
I would expect that there must be movement. If it's a fair process, there must be movement. It is very clear that he's trying to duck and dive. The complaint, first of all, there was an appeal that we filed on the 3rd of August 2020 against his ruling in terms whereby the matter was referred by him, Chief Justice Mogoeng, to the Judicial Conduct Tribunal, right? He has not dealt with the allegations raised by me, leveled against him in that response. Subsequent thereto, on the 31st of August 2020, I filed the complaint now that you have referred to against him, right? He has not even acknowledged, the Judicial Service Commission has not even acknowledged the receipt of that complaint. This is why I have to go public. These are my rights. I'm entitled to a fair hearing, and if Chief Justice Mogoeng violates anyone's rights, he must suffer the consequences. He is not above the law.
All right. I just want to go back to the issue of the Western Cape High Court itself, which seems to be in quite an unusual state of affairs. You said it's a very well-run court, but at the same time, from the perspective of those watching the situation, you have a complaint against the judge president by his deputy. You have a complaint by the deputy against the judge president. But then you also have a complaint by the judges of the court against another colleague, which is Judge Parker. And in all of that, there's allegations that there are lies, there's an unhealthy working relationship, there's favoritism, and you are the leader of that court. What do you make of that as a leader of the court from a perspective of someone looking from the outside? It doesn't look good.
Yes. We must remember this is the narrative that is created by the media. Let's deal with the facts. The facts are the following. The court is well run in the Western Cape by me. There is virtually no backlog in the division, right? Obviously, we are human beings. You would expect differences to arise. I think they are being blown out of proportion in the first place, largely because of the media. Clearly, there are differences, fundamental differences in terms of how I run the division and how Judge Goliath would like to run the division. For me, the most important thing is for us to work together and respect each other, right? There are colleagues, 12 colleagues who deposed to an affidavit and filed a complaint against Judge Parker. I am not in a position, I do not want to comment on those, on that complaint because it is pending before the Judicial Service Commission. But by and large, this has to do with the allegations that he was allegedly assaulted, right? And Judge Parker, by the way, has gone public and has dealt with those allegations decisively. And there is no complaint by Judge Parker against me relating to alleged assault, and he did not file any complaint with SAPS relating to alleged assault. This again is a mirror image of the old complaint that we spoke about. Remember in 2008, when the Constitutional Court judges filed a complaint, Justices Ngabinde and Jafta, the judges that I was alleged to have engaged, did not complain. Even now, they are not complaining. Exactly the same thing is happening now. 12 years later, Justice Parker, who was alleged to have been assaulted by me, has not complained. He has not laid any criminal charges against me. Right? Whatever problems that we have were resolved. Whatever problems that Judge Parker may have had with my wife were resolved. But other judges decide to enter into the fray and say, you told us one day so and so had happened. It's clearly a mirror image of the very first complaint against me.
Thank you once again for joining us. We're in the home of Western Cape High Court Judge John Hlophe, the head of that division, and we're dealing with some of the matters that have recently gotten attention in the media, issues relating to complaints that have been laid against him, laid against some of his colleagues, and complaints that he has in fact laid against the Chief Justice of the Constitutional Court. Now, you were talking about this issue relating to Judge Parker and how he hasn't complained. But it's an issue that I think has gotten quite a lot of attention, because obviously an allegation that a judge has assaulted another judge within chambers is quite serious. There was a letter that was written by your lawyer, Mr. Kulu, where he says that there seem to be lies that are being told. And I'm wondering who is telling these lies and why?
Well, my version, as well as my version under oath, I'm not going to repeat it because the matter is still pending before the Judicial Service Commission. Justice Parker has not yet given evidence in respect of what transpired. But one thing clear is this: Judge Parker has not laid any complaint against me relating to alleged assault. Secondly, there is no criminal case pending against me relating to alleged assault. Thirdly, whatever event or incident may have happened in chambers relating to me or Justice Hlophe, all of that was resolved. Now, Parker is a judge, he's a criminal lawyer. If he feels he was assaulted, nothing would stop him from going to court and laying a criminal charge against me of assault, right? If he feels he was not assaulted, he would not complain.
So what I'm trying to get at is, what do you think is going on? Why would the other judges who were not party to the meeting or the altercation or the incident, let me rather call it that, why would they then lay a complaint? Because what they're essentially saying is that they believe somebody's lying.
Yes.
So looking at it from the outside, it does look like there's a serious issue within the court. And I'm just trying to get a sense of what might be at the root of that.
Well, they are saying, Justice Parker, they are saying individually, but collectively, that Justice Parker told them one thing. Individually, he told them that he was assaulted by me, but then when the matter came before the Judicial Service Commission, I deposed to an affidavit, which is a statement that was made under oath, and he, Judge Parker, went along with my version, i.e., that he was not assaulted. So the argument is that he is not telling them the truth, because he told them individually and separately that he was assaulted by me. But now when I gave my version under oath, he went along with my version that he was not assaulted, which is true because he has not complained. Right? It is the narrative, it's how the matter is being reported by the media. Let's look at it differently. Ask yourself the following question. Why is the explanation given by Judge Parker of how events unfolded, why is that not acceptable? Do they want Judge Parker to lie and say he was in fact assaulted? Because nothing stops Judge Parker from saying he was assaulted, if indeed he was assaulted. But if he says he was not assaulted, people must go along with what he says because he's not complaining. Now, why is he not believed when he says he was not assaulted? This is why I'm saying this is a mirror image of the old case against me in terms whereby judges of the Constitutional Court, Gabinde and Jafta, did not and are still not complaining. But other judges of the Constitutional Court, some of them were not even in the building, are complaining, saying, no, we have also been involved in this because we don't sit individually, we sit as a group. In other words, as the slogan goes, an injury to one is an injury to all. I've heard that in the context of trade unions, but clearly it happens in judicial circles as well.
So an injury to one is an injury to all. I think one might be able to say then in the context of the judiciary, though, an injury to the image of a judge can be seen as an injury to the image of the judiciary as a whole.
I agree entirely.
Now, perhaps you could tell us, as people who rely on the justice system, who see judges sometimes as the last gap measure for justice.
Yes.
How do we know, with all of these complaints and counter-complaints within this division, that you are all able to actually work together and continue to do the work of delivering justice?
It's very easy. Look at the results. We were in court yesterday and nobody has complained. Ever since these complaints started in January, this court has been run effectively and efficiently. I challenge any member of the public, I challenge any attorney or advocate who is not getting justice, or any litigant in the Western Cape, to come and complain. Notwithstanding this huge public lynching and huge public pressure which is brought upon me in particular, work is going on as usual. We are human beings. People must not forget that judges are human beings. We should be allowed to differ. But I do think, with respect, it is the narrative that the media is running with, which is creating an impression that everyone who's a judge in the Western Cape is fighting. We're not fighting, we're adults at the end of the day. It is how events have unfolded, with specific reference to the Goliath complaint, how it started in the first place. Goliath did exactly this. The Goliath complaint, like the other complaint, we read about it literally in the media. An envelope was given, a brown envelope was given to me. My wife was not even at work on that day. If my memory serves me well, it was shoved under her chambers, right? Within hours, the media was running with it. Right? It happens with all complaints against Judge Hlophe, but remember, I'm still expecting the same media to run with the complaints against the Chief Justice and the other judges president, right? Including the judge president, that there is a complaint against him of gross misconduct, which was filed with the Judicial Service Commission more than 7 years ago. In fact, I invite you now, write to the Judicial Service Commission. This information surely is in the interest of the public. Ask for information, the names of judges in respect of whom there are complaints against them.
So just looking at what you're saying, do judges know how to accept being disciplined or being questioned? Considering that some of these matters seem to be staying in the courts initially for a very long time before they end up at the point where they're actually being dealt with. If you look at the Mutata case, if we look at your case, there's a lot of litigation that has happened in both of those matters. Do judges actually know how to deal with criticism, to deal with being questioned as people who often are the ones that are delivering judgment?
Yes, I think judges, as I have said before, are human beings. We would accept being criticized and disciplined. Personally, I don't have a problem with that. The problem starts when the process is not fair, when there is selective prosecution, when there are certain judges who are guilty of misconduct, who are sitting on the bench and they are not being disciplined. Then you hear about one judge and one judge only every day, and that is Hlophe. You don't hear about complaints that have been made against those judges, including Chief Justice Mogoeng. He's conveniently quiet. Not a single journalist in this world is talking about serious complaints that have been leveled against him of gross judicial misconduct. There is not a single journalist who's calling for his head. There is not a single journalist who says he must be suspended pending that investigation. Everybody is quiet. Then I have every problem with a system which is like that, where there is selective prosecution.
Okay. Well, we are here today and we're talking about exactly that. So I don't know if we can say not a single journalist is looking at the matter. I think it is a very important issue for the country to look at what's happening in the judiciary as the third arm of the state, and for people to also have confidence in the judiciary. And the issue of the impression that gets created by these complaints and counter complaints. Is it the best way to deal with these kind of issues, for judges to be laying complaints against one another?
Well, firstly, I take it back. Let me take it back. You are the first journalist, I must say, to come to me and ask me questions in that regard. So I will take that back. The question, is it fair for judges to be subjected to this? It is not fair, obviously, for the judiciary to be subjected to public lynching. Nobody enjoys that in the first place. And we have families. We have litigants, people appear before us. There are many people who take us seriously out there in the communities. So it's clearly not fair. I wish we could find another different way of dealing with these complaints. But as I've said before, the problem starts when there is selective prosecution of judges and selective public lynching. There are those who are liked by the system, who are favored, and you don't hear any complaints relating to them. But those who are not favored by the system, those who are not liked, will always be chased. That obviously becomes inherently unfair. Once there is a complaint and the name of the judge is being dragged down the drain or through the mud, that particular individual judge is fighting with his or her back immediately against the wall. And sadly, we have to go and preside in cases, right? And the litigants are there. They read newspapers as well. So it is clearly not fair. And I've gone through that for the past 13, 14, 15 years. Right?
Has it affected your work?
It has. Well, I deal with it. I do not allow it to affect my work. I believe, notwithstanding these ongoing complaints against me, I do my work. I run the division. I preside over cases. The number of appeals against my judgments has not increased. So I do my work. It has not. I try and not to allow it to affect me. I would be lying if I say it doesn't affect me. It does affect me. I'm a human being as well. I'm not a supernatural human being, right? But I do not want it to affect me to a point where it affects my ability to perform. I want, when I get up here every day, go to work, I want to be able to do my work, dispense justice fearlessly and without fear and favor. So it doesn't affect me to that extent.
Now, one of the things that has come up in the various back and forth over the complaints relating to Judge Goliath is that there is an allegation of favoritism as it relates to your wife, Judge Hlophe, and I think that the suggestion is that you are treating her more favorably than other colleagues in the court. That's one of the things that the Judicial Service Commission is now meant to investigate, and you've said that you're appealing that investigation itself. When you look at the situation where there's a suggestion that your wife and you shouldn't work in the same division, what do you say to that?
Well, that's a nonsensical allegation to begin with. Judge Hlophe has been a judge in the division now for about 7 years. When we got married, which is about 5.5 years, Chief Justice Mogoeng was in fact present at our wedding. He endorsed our marriage, he was present, he joined us at our nuptials. One would have expected that if there was any merit in those allegations, that such allegations would have been made much earlier, right? Not after 7 years of Judge Sally Hlophe being a judge in the division. It is important to contextualize these allegations. As I have said before, Judge Goliath, who makes these astonishing allegations, was singing praises about my leadership skills when she wanted to become a judge in the Constitutional Court in 2018. She did not complain about me, right? These are new allegations. I would say with respect, it is a pigment of their own imagination. Apart from Goliath, there is not a single judge who has complained and said Judge Sally Hlophe is favored by me. She does her work like any other judges in the division. I do not favor her. I do not favor any other judge in the division. And there is not a single judge of the 33 judges in the Western Cape who can say I allocate work in a manner that is vindictive, in a manner that is meant to embarrass or insult a particular colleague, or in a manner that is meant to favor Judge Sally Hlophe. She is a judge, she does her work like any other judges in the division.
Thank you for staying with us. We are still in conversation with Western Cape Judge President John Hlophe, speaking now a little bit about his career as a judge. Now, Judge Hlophe, you've been the Western Cape Judge President for 20 years now, yes. But you've been a judge for 26 years. Before that, an academic. Yes. Would you say that that has put you a little bit on the outside as it comes to some of your colleagues who may have practiced law in a different manner, or been advocates for a longer period of time?
To some extent, yes, because I'm an outsider to the system, and particularly a place like the Western Cape. But I also believe that that is a positive advantage. I'm not going to toe the line and simply do things the way they have been done for 20 or 30 years, right? I came here with some ideas, admittedly from the academia, but I believe that has helped me in terms of understanding how the situation is and improving on the system. There's always a danger of complacence if you do one and the same thing the same way for 30, 40 years. So I believe I have added value to that extent.
What are the issues that actually make it difficult in this province?
Firstly, racism was very successful in the Western Cape. As you know, historically, there have always been very few black people in the Western Cape, right? We are still called immigrants from the north in the Western Cape. That is the main problem. You do not have the pool is just too narrow, right? It is not big enough. Remember, lawyers of today are judges of tomorrow. So when the legal system itself, when the legal practice, if you like, is not sufficiently transformed, we end up having a problem whereby the lawyers do not get the relevant exposure which they need, the kind of training that they need in order for them to acquire skills, which skills they may ultimately use when they become appointed as judges. So there are very, very few suitably qualified. There are few lawyers, black lawyers in the profession, and obviously there will be fewer lawyers who are suitably qualified to be elevated to the bench. It is work in progress. And there have been many judges in the Western Cape, myself included, who have been brought, who come from other provinces, right? And I do believe eventually, though, we need to widen the pool of local practitioners so that they can be appointed.
Okay. One more thing that I wanted us to touch on is I think something that recently made headlines, and it was quite a bizarre story as well, relating to a report that came from the
Judicial Chicks report.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. Sorry, I forgot the full name there. But that report makes some very startling allegations, also relating to this Goliath matter. But it actually places an allegation on you that you have been involved or associated with some criminals who allegedly are preparing to take a hit out on Judge Goliath. It's a very, very serious allegation. I've noted that your lawyers have responded to that. It's not an allegation that's before the Judicial Service Commission, but it is in the public domain at the moment.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering, have you heard from any authorities, the Department of Justice, or anyone about this allegation that you are somehow involved in commissioning a hit?
Nobody contacted me about this. As I understand it, Judge Goliath complained early in June. Mm-hmm. I think it was on the 3rd or the 4th of June, indicated that there was a plot. Someone brought it to her attention that there was a plot to assassinate her. Mm-hmm. My name was mentioned in the Chicks report. At the time when the Department of Justice was approached and the OCJ, the Office of the Chief Justice, nobody cared to approach me in that regard. I was not told. I can tell you one thing, the allegations are serious, but they are nonsensical. Why would I want to kill Judge Goliath? Mm. To gain what? On the contrary, if I am dead, she will act as a judge president. If she dies, for whatever reasons, I will never act as a DJP. So why would I kill her? I have no interest in killing Judge Goliath, or anybody for that matter. Mm. The allegations are nonsensical. They are designed once more to tarnish my reputation. I have reason to believe that the timing of these allegations, it was done deliberately so that this would coincide with the hearing of the Judicial Service Commission, the old complaint against me. Remember, it was scheduled to occur on the 24th of October last month. However, it was postponed now to December. Mm. So all I'm saying, I have reason to believe that these nonsensical allegations, which first surfaced in the media, by the way, before anybody contacted me, the timing thereof, it was deliberate, it was designed to tarnish my reputation, it was made to coincide with the hearing of the Judicial Service complaint against me. And the allegations are false. It is a waste of state resources. Mm. There is nobody who is threatening Judge Goliath. And to prove that there is nobody, SAPS has not protected Judge Goliath. Mm. Right? A judge can only be protected by virtue of his or her position. Right? In my case, for instance, I have bodyguards because I'm the judge president. Right? Judge Goliath does not qualify for protection at that level because she is not a judge president. Mm. The only other way that Judge Goliath can be protected is if there is a valid threat against her. SAPS has not provided any credible report to warrant that protection. Mm. I'm not surprised why she's not protected by SAPS. She's protected by a private company. Mm. She will never be protected by SAPS because there is no report, and there will never be a report to the effect that her life is being threatened, because there is nobody who is threatening Judge Goliath.
So here you are, 20 years into your term as the judge president, facing a lot of allegations from a different perspective. What do you think that all of this is going to do for your legacy, for how people will remember you, whether you retire or just later on in your life?
I think, like all public figures, people will remember me differently. There is no doubt there are many people out there who look up to me, right? As a solid leader, as a solid lawyer, as a solid scholar, and as a leader. There are many people out there. Equally, there are those who do not like me for reasons best known to them. In certain instances, it's political reasons. In certain instances, it's sheer jealousy. Everybody would like to become a judge president. Every judge would like his or her wife to be a judge as well. Mm. So I cannot, I have no control over that. So all I can say is that I have no doubt there are many, many people in this country, many South Africans who look up to me, notwithstanding the cloud that has been deliberately created over me. There are many people who take me seriously, who regard the contribution that I have made over many years on the bench as having been outstanding and exceptional, and they will always look up to me, irrespective of attempts to tarnish my reputation.
If the 2008 complaint didn't arise,
Yes.
would you have put your hand up to be the Chief Justice?
Well, definitely, I would, yes. The answer is yes, I would. And that complaint must be contextualized. It arose because at that time, every person in the legal fraternity was saying Hlophe is the future Chief Justice. Everybody was saying that. The turning point was, as I have said before, the racism report, which I authored and which was published in 2004. Prior to 2004, you can look at my track record. I was heavily used and engaged by the Department of Justice. I was a darling of the legal profession. Everybody, I was in everybody's lips. Everybody said, Hlophe is a future Chief Justice. And Chief Justice Mogoeng himself is aware of it.
So if you had a magic wand and you could go back, would you change anything?
In the legal fraternity.
In perhaps things that you've done, how some of the issues have unfolded and how you have responded to them. For example, would you have, in hindsight,
Yes.
still gone and had those conversations with Justice Nkabinde and Justice Jafta, knowing today how that would have continued into your life?
I would have had those discussions with them because they were innocent. I maintain they were innocent. As I've said before, I have known Judge Jafta for years. We've always been friends, right? I would have continued engaging them. There was absolutely, in my view, nothing improper. And that's what the JSC found, by the way, when it exonerated me. So there was nothing improper about that discussion. That was my position then, and that is still my position. And I would like to think there is a position taken by Justices Nkabinde and Jafta that explains why they are not complaining. They did not feel that it was improper, the discussion. Very interestingly, on both days, when I met Justice Nkabinde, on that particular day, she was on duty with Justice Langa. Right. Immediately when I left her chambers, I went to Judge Langa. If I had said anything improper, she missed a golden opportunity to say, hey, the man who's coming to your chambers, by the way, now, this is what he did. Right? She didn't report because clearly there must have been nothing untoward that I said to her. That was my position then, and it is my position now.
So Justice Langa has passed away a few years ago, and he, I think, is also central to this story.
Yes.
When your complaint is heard in December, well, not your complaint, but the complaint against you, when it's heard in December, do you think that the fact that he's not there to speak of those meetings and those conversations, what kind of effect will that have on the way that matter is dealt with?
Well, there is no doubt. Had Chief Justice Langa been alive, I would have called him as a witness for a number of reasons. Firstly, there was a reason for me to go to the Constitutional Court on that day, because the night prior to that, there was a function at which the then Minister Bridget Mabandla she presided over that function. It had to do with the appointment of female judges. I was there. Chief Justice Langa was there. We fixed an appointment at that meeting that I was going to come to the building and see him and give him a report in respect of what he had asked me to do in the Western Cape. So my visit to the building was official. And after I had a discussion with Justice Nkabinde, we were chatting. I have known her for years. I told her I'm going to Judge Langa and why I'm going to Justice Langa. She knew about it, right? As I've said before, at no stage did Justice Nkabinde say, Langa, no. The person who's coming to you now has just said this to me. Right? I would certainly have called Justice Langa because he knows what happened. Interestingly, Justice, when the other day when I had a meeting with Judge Jafta, I also had occasion after that meeting to have a discussion with Justice Madala, who is now deceased. So the delay, there is absolutely no doubt, will prejudice me, but we'll cross the bridge when you get there. My version has not changed because it is the truth. I never improperly intended. I never improperly attempted to influence the judges in respect of the ruling in this moment.